I don't know, I just like him.
You like the gingers?
I do.
For over half a century, Raquel Welch reigned as one of Hollywood's most iconic symbols of beauty, elegance, and strength. With her fiery presence, undeniable charisma, and unforgettable performances, she was the woman who could stop time, the actress who embodied both glamour and independence in an industry that often wanted women to be just one or the other. But behind the red carpet smiles and timeless poise, Raquel carried her own private thoughts about love, desire, and the men who fascinated her the most. As she entered her 80s, she shocked fans and delighted Hollywood insiders by opening up about her life, her passions, and the 6 men she secretly admired, the ones who stirred her heart, mind, and imagination. It wasn't about scandal or regret. It was about honesty. For the first time, Raquel Welch allowed the world to see the playful, romantic dreamer beneath the icon, the woman who loved deeply, lived boldly, and never apologized for being herself. These weren't random names from her past. Each man she mentioned represented something deeper, a chapter of Hollywood's golden age, a reflection of what she valued in men: confidence, artistry, power, and mystery. At 82, Raquel Welch wasn't confessing. She was celebrating, revealing the truth about passion, attraction, and the timeless spark that never fades. No matter how many years pass, before she became the woman every camera adored, Raquel Welch was simply Jo Raquel Tejada, a girl from Chicago with a dream bigger than her surroundings. Born in 1940 to a Bolivian father and an American mother, she grew up in a world far removed from Hollywood glamour. Yet even then, something about her stood out. Teachers remembered her grace, her confidence, and the spark in her eyes, a spark that hinted at the legend she would become. In her teenage years, Raquel was disciplined and ambitious. She trained as a ballet dancer for a decade, dreaming of performing under the bright lights of a stage, not yet realizing those same lights would one day follow her everywhere she went. But when she entered beauty pageants and began winning local titles, fate seemed to whisper that her destiny lay beyond the ordinary. By the early 1960s, Raquel had set her sights on Hollywood. It wasn't an easy start. She juggled minor roles, photo shoots, and auditions, struggling to be taken seriously in an industry that valued looks over depth. Yet Raquel was determined to prove she was more than just another pretty face. Her breakout came in 1966, when she starred in 1 Million Years BC, a role that catapulted her into international stardom. The image of Raquel in a fur bikini became one of the most iconic visuals in film history, cementing her status as the ultimate symbol of beauty and power. But what few understood was that Raquel wasn't comfortable being reduced to just a fantasy. Behind the confidence was a woman with discipline, intellect, and a clear sense of who she was. She once said, "I'm more than a body and a poster. I worked for this. I earned it." As her fame grew, Raquel found herself surrounded by the biggest stars of the era: Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Elvis Presley, Steve McQueen, and Clint Eastwood. The parties were dazzling, the attention constant, but Raquel remained surprisingly reserved. She was flirtatious and magnetic, yes, but never reckless. The men admired her. Some were captivated. Yet she maintained a mystery that made her even more alluring. Hollywood adored her confidence, but it also misunderstood it. Raquel wasn't chasing validation. She was setting her own rules in a world run by men. She turned down roles that required nudity, insisting that her strength and presence were enough. "I didn't need to take off my clothes to be sexy," she once said. It was all in the attitude. Behind the glamour, though, Raquel was human. She had crushes, fantasies, and admiration for her co-stars. But unlike most, she kept those feelings private for decades. In her later years, when asked about the men who truly fascinated her, she laughed softly and said, "There were a few, very few. But oh, they were unforgettable." Those words would later lead to her famous revelation: the 6 actors she secretly wanted to be with. Not because of fame or appearance, but because of the way they carried themselves. These men represented the essence of masculinity during Hollywood's golden age: charm, danger, intelligence, and mystery. But before she could open up about those names, Raquel had to first find her voice as a woman in an industry that wanted to define her. And it was that voice, strong, feminine, and unshakably self-aware, that would make her not just a sex symbol, but a cultural icon who inspired generations. As Raquel once reflected, I didn't want to be anyone's fantasy. I wanted to be my own woman. But every now and then, even I couldn't help but have a fantasy or two. And with that smile, playful and knowing, Raquel Welch began the story that Hollywood never expected her to tell. When Raquel Welch finally decided to open up about her list, she did it with that same glint of mischief that made her a star. It wasn't scandal she was sharing, it was admiration. These weren't tabloid confessions. They were the honest musings of a woman who had lived, loved, and observed some of the most magnetic men to ever grace a movie screen. As she began to speak, she laughed, her voice low and playful. "Oh!" There were 6 of them. 6 men who could make any woman blush. I didn't need to be with them. I just couldn't help imagining what it might be like. The first name she mentioned was Steve McQueen, the king of cool. Raquel had worked near him on the same studio lots, often crossing paths at Hollywood events in the late 60s. To her, McQueen was the perfect contradiction, rugged but graceful, quiet but commanding. He had this wildness about him, she once said. You never knew what he was thinking, and that was part of the charm. He didn't chase attention, it just followed him. Then came Clint Eastwood. Tall, calm, with that piercing gaze, Eastwood represented the ultimate masculine mystery. Raquel once admitted that his quiet confidence was irresistible. He didn't talk much, she recalled, but when he did, everyone listened. You couldn't help but wonder what was behind those eyes. She paused before smiling. I never said a word to him about it, of course. But women notice that kind of power, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. The third man on her list was Paul Newman, the gentleman of Hollywood. For Raquel, Newman embodied kindness wrapped in charisma. He was flawless, she said, not just in looks, but in soul. You could see the goodness in him. He treated everyone with respect, even when the cameras weren't rolling. Newman represented something deeper for Raquel, a reminder that real attraction came from integrity, not ego. Next, she mentioned Sean Connery, the ultimate James Bond. Sean had that voice, Raquel said with a playful grin. He could make a room go silent just by saying your name. He had this quiet authority, like he knew everything about you without asking. The fifth was Warren Beatty, the charming troublemaker. Their paths crossed several times at events in the 1970s, when Beatty was already known for his magnetic effect on women. Raquel admired his intelligence and wit, and the way he seemed to know it. He was trouble, she laughed. The kind of man you should run from, but never want to. And finally, she smiled when she spoke of Cary Grant. Though they were from different Hollywood eras, Raquel had met him briefly early in her career and never forgot his grace. Cary was elegance personified. He could make you feel like you were the only person in the world. I didn't want him. I wanted to be like him, effortlessly poised, forever timeless. What made this list remarkable wasn't just the names, it was the way Raquel spoke about them. There was no vanity, no regret, no exaggeration. Just appreciation for the energy these men carried. An energy that represented a time when Hollywood men were larger than life, yet still grounded in mystery and style. She ended her revelation by saying, I think every woman at some point has her secret crushes. Mine just happened to be legends. Fans were captivated, not because of who she named, but because of how she said it, with dignity, humor, and that unshakable Raquel Welch confidence. Even in her 80s, she still carried the same allure she had at 30, proof that desire, admiration, and fantasy are timeless. But behind that elegant smile was a deeper truth, one that Raquel would explore later in life. What it truly meant to be wanted, not just as an image, but as a woman. For all the admiration that surrounded Raquel Welch, few people understood the loneliness that came with being one of the most desired women in the world. Behind the camera flashes and magazine covers, Raquel often found herself wrestling with the same question that haunted so many stars of her generation. Was she loved for who she was, or for who people imagined her to be? By the late 1960s, Raquel was at the peak of her fame. Her films were box office hits, her beauty was legendary, and her image was plastered across billboards from Los Angeles to London. Every man in Hollywood wanted to work with her, or be near her, but very few truly knew her. "I was always playing a fantasy," she once admitted. "Even when I went home at night, I think people expected that fantasy to follow me through the door." Her marriages reflected that inner conflict. Raquel was married 4 times, each union beginning with passion and promise, only to fade under the weight of fame and expectation. "Men liked the idea of Raquel Welch," she said, "but not all of them liked the reality of me, the woman who worked hard, who had opinions, who wasn't afraid to take control." Her first marriage, to her high school sweetheart, James Welch, ended as her career began to soar. Fame, she later reflected, didn't destroy that relationship. Distance did. We were young. I was chasing dreams, and he didn't sign up for the chaos that came with them. In her later marriages, Raquel longed for something deeper, a connection beyond appearances. Yet time and again, she found herself typecast not only on screen, but in her personal life. "It's funny," she said once. "You can be admired by millions and still feel invisible." Through it all, Raquel remained fiercely independent. While other stars softened their images or relied on powerful men to sustain their careers, she built her own path. She became known for standing her ground, refusing roles that objectified her, demanding respect on set, and never compromising her principles. Some called her difficult. She called it survival. In interviews later in life, she spoke candidly about her reputation. "They said I was hard to work with because I didn't flirt with directors or play dumb," she said with a knowing smile. "But that's exactly why I lasted." Despite her guarded heart, Raquel was never cynical about love. She believed in it, perhaps too deeply. "I think part of me was always searching for the kind of romance you see in old movies," she once confessed. The kind Cary Grant might have offered, or the intensity of a Steve McQueen. That kind of connection felt real. But as the years passed, Raquel came to realize that her greatest love story wasn't with another person. It was with herself. She learned to find peace in solitude, to admire beauty in reflection rather than attention. Her home became her sanctuary, a place where the cameras couldn't follow and where she could finally breathe. Even in her later years, Raquel's elegance never faded. She remained graceful, witty, and unapologetically herself. When interviewers asked if she regretted never finding the one, she laughed softly. "Maybe I did," she said, "but I think I was meant to belong to the world, not to one man." Her revelation about the 6 men she once admired wasn't about lust or nostalgia. It was about celebrating what those men represented: freedom, charisma, and individuality. They reminded her of what she valued in others and what she had come to value in herself: authenticity. For Raquel Welch, the true price of being desired wasn't loneliness. It was being misunderstood. Yet through strength and grace, she turned that pain into power. As she once told a close friend, "I wasn't meant to be anyone's fantasy. I was meant to be my own legend." In the twilight of her life, Raquel Welch had achieved what few ever could: immortality. Not through scandal or controversy, but through presence. Every photograph, every film frame, every graceful gesture reminded the world of the woman who had defined an era. Yet, beyond the image of timeless glamour, Raquel spent her later years quietly reflecting on what her life had truly meant. She lived mostly out of the spotlight, embracing privacy over fame. "I had my moment," she once said. "Now I just want peace." For Raquel, peace meant simplicity. A morning coffee without cameras, long walks, conversations with family, and the freedom to speak without the filter of Hollywood expectations. When she turned 82, she surprised fans by sharing memories that had long stayed hidden. Not gossip, but truths wrapped in humor and humanity. That was when she revealed her list, the 6 actors she wanted to sleep with, though she phrased it not as desire but as admiration. "I don't mean it in a wild way," she laughed. "They were men who fascinated me, men who had that old-school magic. The kind that doesn't exist anymore." Her confession wasn't just playful. It was symbolic. For decades, Raquel had been the fantasy, the woman men longed for. But in the end, she turned the story around, showing that she too had her dreams, her curiosities, and her private passions. It was her final wink to a world that had always seen her as an untouchable goddess. Each name she mentioned, McQueen, Eastwood, Newman, Connery, Beatty, and Grant, represented something more profound. They were reflections of eras gone by, reminders of what Hollywood used to be, bold, romantic, mysterious. "They don't make men like that anymore," she said softly, her smile nostalgic but not bitter, but beyond the glitz of her confession. Raquel also used her later interviews to speak about aging, love, and truth. She refused to let time define her. "Beauty fades," she once said, "but allure is eternal. It comes from how you carry yourself, from the fire inside." Even as age changed her reflection, she embraced it with grace. She often told younger actresses, "Don't chase youth. Chase confidence. The rest will follow." Her words carried the weight of experience, the wisdom of a woman who had been both worshipped and misunderstood, adored and isolated, yet always unbroken. In her final years, Raquel also spoke openly about loneliness and the lessons of independence. "You learn that love isn't about having someone next to you," she said. "It's about finding peace within yourself. Once you do that, you're never really alone." When Raquel passed away in 2023, tributes poured in from every corner of the world. Fellow stars, directors, and fans celebrated not just her beauty, but her courage, her humor, and her refusal to conform. She had outlasted the stereotypes, outshone the critics, and outlived the labels that Hollywood tried to put on her, and perhaps that was her greatest legacy, a woman who dared to define femininity on her own terms. Even in revealing the 6 men who once captured her imagination, she reminded the world that desire isn't shameful, and that a woman can be both powerful and passionate, elegant and bold. As one of her last interviews closed, she looked into the camera, her voice steady, her smile serene. "People always ask me if I ever got what I wanted," she said. "The truth is, I got something better. I got to live as Raquel Welch, completely, fiercely, unapologetically." Those words became her final message to the world, a reminder that confidence is timeless. Truth is liberating, and beauty, when lived with courage, never truly fades. Raquel Welch may have shared a few names in jest, but what she really gave us was something much deeper. The story of a woman who knew her worth, cherished her fantasies, and left behind a legacy that will forever shimmer in Hollywood's golden light.